Don Seafood, 4801 Veterans Boulevard in Metairie. It doesn't get any better. The soft shell crab, the oysters on the half shell, the charbroiled oysters, the steak, the potatoes, you name it, they've got it at Don's. Over 80 years of a family-owned restaurant that does it the right way, serving you with a proud tradition of Cajun cuisine and fresh Louisiana seafood. It's Don Seafood here in Metairie. And a pleasant good evening to you. Ken Trahan for sportsNOLAtv from Don Seafood in Metairie as we break down the Saints season coming to an end. We'll also talk about the Pelicans, LSU, and much more, and we'll do so with three outstanding gentlemen who always show up and they get it right some of the time, including former New Orleans Saints wide receiver Torrance Small. Torrance, good evening to you.
Hey, how we doing, Ken? And hello to all out there. Hey, I'm wearing my blue today. Blue Monday. Ken is trying to brighten up the set today, but it's Blue Monday. The Saints are out. Now we have to look and pull for our Pelicans.
Okay, Pelicans just joined the NFL. No, I'm just kidding. Right. Brian Alley Walsh of sportsNOLA.com with us per usual. And Brian, good evening to you.
Good afternoon, good evening, Dr. Trahan. First off, I'd just like to say this. Good luck to Morton Anderson in his quest to make the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's one of 15 semifinalists. Good luck, Morty. We're all pulling for you here. We'll do anything we can, correct, Dr. Trahan?
Absolutely. He deserves to be in. So does Aeneas Williams out of New Orleans from Fort Chain High School, and he just missed last year. And I should think those two gentlemen will get in, hopefully this year, if not sometime in the future, to join this man, 2010 Pro Football Hall of Fame inductee, Ricky Jackson.
Yeah, you know, Ken, it was a blue Monday like Tyrone said. Anytime the Saints lose, man, especially out of the playoff season over for them, it was tough for the whole city. But I know Brian never did vote for me to get in the Hall of Fame. I would have been in if it don't be for him.
If I'd have known you were growing that beard, I'd have voted for you sooner.
Is that a sympathy thing? Are you trying to look like Brian, or what's that all about?
TD Jakes.
TD Jakes,
That's a good one.
Now you're keeping good company now.
That's a good look.
Torrance and I give you a little big thumbs up.
That's a good look.
You're doing a good job. So the Saints season is over, and we'll tell you about how it ended, show you the highlights of their loss to the Seattle Seahawks, and talk about what's to come, including what their biggest needs are throughout the course of the show. As sportsNOLAtv continues at Don Seafood, where you'll get the oysters baked on the half shell, and you'll get the gumbo, and you'll get sportsNOLAtv too. Just a brilliantly consistent player who goes about his business the right way, Marcus Colston. It's never been about bragging, never been about talking, never been about drawing attention to himself, and he's never been to a Pro Bowl. He kind of reminds me the offensive side of a guy like Wayne Martin, who was the same kind of guy, just a consistently excellent player for the Saints, who never drew attention to himself and never really got it because of that. And Colston's that same guy. He's just really good. Saints Hall of Famer the day he quits as soon as he's eligible, and maybe more. That guy is a really good football player. As we continue from sportsNOLAtv and Don Seafood, Ken Trahan, and it's time to talk about the Saints' loss to the Seattle Seahawks. So, Brian, as we get things started and you look back at this game, you knew that the Saints would have to play a nearly flawless, if not flawless, game against a better team on the road. They did not do so with the 8 penalties, with the turnover, with the kicking game mistakes. Obviously, that was too much to overcome.
Yeah, when you get the elements that we thought they'd get, and they got them, you have to play nearly flawless football. Field position comes into play, ball security comes into play, and both those, and special teams, you have to be spot on with those kind of aspects of a game. And one turnover resulted in a touchdown for Seattle. They missed 2 field goals into the wind, granted, still missed 2 field goals. And then, you know, they didn't play well at spots. And the defense played well enough to win, but we'll talk about that later.
Right. You hate to single out one guy. You win and lose as a team unquestionably. And while Drew Brees struggled in the first half, and while the Saints defense gave up a lot of yards rushing to Marshawn Lynch, Mark Ingram's play really hurt the Saints in this game. He's been good down the stretch for the Saints, Torrance, but in this game, It's not just the fumble that cost them 7. It's the drop screen pass. I thought that was critical on that first possession because they're against the wind. And instead of a 3 and out, you're going to be at least at the 40-yard line, maybe more. That play was wide open. And he drops the ball, and that led to the Morstead punt and 3 points. So essentially 10 points, and you just can't have that.
Yes, that's where we miss Pierre Thomas. Pierre Thomas is one of the better screen backs that's out there, and we missed him in that position. And that's not what Mark Ingram does. You know, he's more of a runner. That's not what he does. In the fumble, he can't give it up. Not to this team, not in this atmosphere, not at that time. We could not do that, and we gave the ball up, gave them opportunity to score, and that put us behind. And once we got behind, and that's what they feed off. There with that crowd, they feed off that.
And I thought that it was pretty interesting that, like I said, Brian, the Saints had just gotten the wind at their backs. I thought they were in good shape, only down 6, and they get the wind at their backs to do damage in the second quarter. You know they're going to score a touchdown in that second quarter with the wind at their backs, as they normally do, but they did not. Also found it interesting that Ingram got taken out, Robinson was in, and he got 13 carries.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, to be down 6-0 when they changed the field position, I thought the same thing, Kenny. I thought, okay, they're only down 6-0. They can put a touchdown up here. You know, they played so much better than they did in Week 13, but it wasn't good enough. And like Torrance said, you can't give up the ball on their side of on your side of the field and expect to beat a good football team at home.
Here's a great stat for you, Ricky. Pro Football Focus, Lenny Van Gilder pointed this out to me. Marshawn Lynch broke 13 tackles in this game. And the other 3 games combined for the weekend, running backs broke a total of 17 tackles. This guy's really good, and the tackling wasn't that good.
Well, I mean, you know, it was a lot of arm tackling going. You know, guys going up just trying to grab. They wasn't going, putting a body on him, and that's what he needed. Even in the long run, you can see the defensive back never did go and attack him and cut him down and put a body on him. They more, you know, like, you know, hallelujah and you know, got their hands up. So a guy gonna run through that. And my thing was, I would have wanted to put a lick on that guy, and I would have put that guy down on the ground.
I'm liking Ricky today. I mean, this is WHNO. It's LaCie Broadcasting, Christian Broadcast Company. He's gone TD Jakes and Hallelujah already, and we've only gone 3 segments. It's all good. Okay, Brian, I'm going to take you to the final play from scrimmage of the game. All right. Colson catches the ball. He's going to go out of bounds at the 36, 37-yard line. You got time to get one in the end zone for sure from that point with Jimmy Graham, Marcus Colston, big guys. At least you've got a puncher's chance. Instead, Colston tries to go across the field, which obviously was the call. But I would suggest to you that quarterbacks audible all the time. If you're Marcus Colston, wasn't that a situation of audible? You see the sideline, you see what's in front of you, just step out of bounds and give yourself a chance?
Yeah, I mean, Kenny, I agree. There's no doubt it was a call play. Marcus Colston is not going to make that decision on his own. But I'll tell you what, I'd rather see Drew Brees fling a ball 45 yards into the air and you know, because you're always like puncher's chance is a great word, Kenny, great expression, is because what? At worst, it gets knocked down or intercepted and the game's over anyway. But the other things, a tip ball in the end zone, touchdown, or a penalty in the end zone, ball at the 2 or 1. So, you know, you want Drew Brees to have that final shot, not Marcus Colston.
Yeah, we had flashbacks to the River City relay there, but it didn't happen. All right, let's take a look at final statistics from the Seattle victory over the New Orleans Saints. And it's pretty interesting because the Saints dominated in total yards, largely due to the second half, and the Saints ran the ball well. And they ended up passing the ball well. But the turnover number was critical. Time of possession was a wash. Third down conversions not good enough overall, Torrance. Again, numbers can be deceiving. They were playing from behind much of the way. And on the touchdown drive the Saints had for the second score when they were down 2 scores, Seattle relaxed a little bit, played a little bit softer.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they wanted to run the clock. The thing at that point, the clock was not the Saints' friend at that time. They just wanted some of the clock to run out at that time. One thing I think we didn't do in this game, we didn't get Jimmy Graham involved. I think the play calling offensively was subpar in this game. I thought it could have been better. I thought we could have got Jimmy Graham a little bit more involved. We talked about it all set about getting him in motion. Those guys were trying to harass him up on the line, trying to press him off the line, give him problems getting off the ball and all. And this is a guy that's still developing as a tight end, coming from basketball and all, just with football, period. And I thought they should have helped him out a lot more. He's too valuable of an asset for us, and we didn't use him enough.
Well, Seattle's very physical. Their defensive backs are the best. They are the best secondary in the NFL. They get up on you, they get physical, they knock you off your routes. No doubt some bunch formations and some motion might have helped, but this isn't on Jimmy Graham. They call plays for him. It's not that they didn't call plays for him. It's not the play calling. It's the fact that he wasn't open. The guy had no space, didn't create space, and really kind of stopped competing for the ball at some point. So even though he had a great year, he didn't have a great game. And he's got to learn about pregame too, Ricky. You played the game, and I know you could teach the young man a lesson, but don't get yourself caught up in all this garbage before the game, not just with one Seahawk defender, but two different guys and knocking a hat off of a guy. Look, turn the other cheek. We're being Christian here, right? Turn the other cheek and go play the game. Instead, all you did was incense the opposition.
I mean, those guys with the U, you know, anytime the University of Miami, those guys, they all rowdy and rough guys. But, you know, I take my hat off to Graham. He had a great year. He didn't have a good postseason game yesterday. We understand that, but he's young, you know, and he'll come back from that. He'll learn from that mistake he made.
Well, Brian, one thing is the Saints really need another threat outside at wide receiver. Is it Joseph Morgan? I don't know, but that would take pressure off of Graham and take focus off of him. Right now, they don't have a guy to really help do that because Colston's really a possession guy.
I couldn't agree with you more, Kenny. I thought as this season progressed, particularly the second half, I know that Seattle's a good defensive team. San Francisco's a good defensive team. Carolina. But those teams successfully were able to take Jimmy Graham out of the game. And I think if you do have that stretch receiver, the Joseph Morgan, if you will, Kenny Stills, I'm not saying he's not on the roster, but they need somebody on a consistent basis to stretch that field and open it up for Jimmy Graham.
I think that that's really a focus for the Saints, and maybe Morgan is that guy. Keep in mind, Peyton wasn't here when Morgan played in 2012, although I got to believe he knows what he has there. And you got to have a guy that can get vertical like Henderson used to do to create some space and give you some opportunity underneath where you must account as a safety for Graham, and you can't double team him all the time. Back in just a moment from Don Seafood with sportsNOLAtv, where the company's great and the food's better. Our sportsNOLA.com trivia question of the evening is a good one. In Saturday's win over the Saints, the Seahawks became the 8th team in NFL postseason history to win despite being outgained by at least 130 yards. Before Saturday, who was the last team to win despite such a yardage disadvantage or disparity? It's a lot of words, but it's a good question, and there's a real good answer coming as well, which I know you will enjoy. Think about it, and we'll see if you can get it right. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv from Don Seafood in Metairie on Veterans between Clearview and Transcontinental. Well, the championship games are set in both conferences. So let's take a look at the scores from this past weekend that got us to the championship games. In the AFC, New England all over Indianapolis by 21 points, ran the ball with tremendous authority and won the turnover battle big. San Francisco, two different halves, totally dominated the second half. After struggling in the first half, they win at Carolina, and then Denver in a game that really wasn't that close. It got closer toward the end, took care of San Diego, the third meeting of those two teams this year. And as a result, we have our conference championship matchups. In the NFC, the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. Play it again, Sam. Third time this year, the division foes will face each other. And then the Patriots and the Broncos, it's Tom Brady against Peyton Manning again. We've seen that before. We saw this matchup earlier this year. Turned out to be an instant classic, and that should be a great game as well. So as we look at these matchups, Brian, the one thing that is evident to me, beyond the shadow of a doubt, unquestionably, clear as day, the four best teams are playing on the final weekend heading into the Super Bowl.
Kenny, you took the words right out of my mouth. And the other thing that sticks out to me is you've got the quarterback battles. You've got the two wily, cagey veteran coyotes in Brady and Manning. against in the NFC West game, and they are the two best teams coming out of the NFC. You've got the two new kids on the block, so it's going to be interesting to see how the four play out.
Sounds like a pop band to me. You know? I'm just saying. Torrance, obviously, as we look at these games, a couple of things come to mind. First of all, starting with the other game on Saturday, New England just pulled away from Indianapolis. And I think Andrew Luck's a great talent. He's going to be a great quarterback. But I thought the whole thing about the Chiefs' comeback was overblown because the Chiefs had 3 defensive starters that were out of the game, and they forgot to cover T.Y. Hilton for some inexplicable reason. And in that game, Luck had 3 interceptions. He had 4 more this past week. I think the anointing of Andrew Luck is a little bit premature, frankly.
Yes, his time will come. He's going to be a pretty good quarterback years to come. If you look at him, he's sort of like Peyton Manning. Peyton came out, he struggled a little bit. He threw a lot of interceptions his first year, but eventually he finally got to the Super Bowl. He finally got to the playoffs and started winning some of those playoff games and won the Super Bowl. I think Andrew Luck will be there. I don't think we need to crown him right now because you still have Tom Brady and Peyton Manning still in this league.
Brian, the thing that struck me about all these games was the running game. Everybody that won ran the football well. Denver ran the ball well. San Francisco ran the ball well. New England ran the ball very well. Seattle ran the ball very well. That's playoff football.
Absolutely, and look at what Russell Wilson completes, 9 passes? Tom Brady didn't complete a lot of passes. Peyton Manning didn't throw for a lot of yards. Championship football, and these guys know this, what kind of football travels well in the playoffs is stop the run and run the football. And all of these 4 teams do it very well.
They really do. And of the 4 quarterbacks, Manning played the best. Easily, he was deadly accurate and just kept the chains moving the whole game. Did have the 1 interception, but that was on a ball thrown right into the gut of his receiver in the end zone, Decker. But Ricky, again, run the football, play defense, and have a good kicking game. If you have those 3 elements, because you look at the elements, and the elements affect the games. And that's what wins, and that's what won this past weekend.
Well, that's the one. And then, the turnover battle make a whole lot different. Even with the Saints, they was 1 behind on the turnover. Most of the time in the playoff, when you win the turnover battle, you win the game. Especially if you're 2 or 3 turnovers better than a team, you always mostly win. And that's what you seen yesterday. The turnover really helped a team get advantage over the other team.
Kenny, can I add just one thing about the turnovers? I think you're absolutely right, Ricky. The Saints defense had no turnovers in the postseason. None. 0. Zilch. And that carried on really a tradition or really a trend that carried on from mid-season. This team quit forcing takeaways, and they were fortunate to beat Philadelphia by getting none and losing at -2. They weren't so fortunate against Seattle.
Torrance, it's a double-edged sword because it's a defense that was markedly improved. And Rob Ryan was the best hire of any hire in the offseason and maybe the best assistant coach in the NFL this year. But they did not force turnovers, and they were the only team in the league not to have a defensive touchdown. So, and that all speaks to the fact that they don't have playmakers. They don't have playmakers at linebacker. They don't have playmakers in the secondary. Keenan Lewis is a good player, but not a fast guy that's going to take off and run with one for a score. Kenny Vaccaro might be that guy ultimately. What we know about the rest of their DBs, they just don't have those kind of guys.
No, we don't have the playmakers. We don't have those guys that are ball hawks like a Sammy Knight. Sammy Knight was always around the ball. Whether it's a fumble or he picking the ball up, he was always around the ball. We don't have those type of guys. But what we do have, we have a defense that's bend but will not break. They give up they give up the field goals. They haven't been giving up the touchdown. We were still in that game because of the defense. The defense was giving them field goals. They went down. They had opportunities to score Seattle, but the defense held them and we gave them 6 points. And that was big early in the game to keep us in because that thing could have got away from us early, but the defense kept us in the game, which gave us an opportunity. We just couldn't get the offense going.
Because Russell Wilson, Ricky, wasn't any good. Other than the 2 completions, the one jump ball to Tate and the one we saw against Corey White late in the game, he did absolutely nothing. He was terribly inaccurate. He missed open guys all day.
And that was my whole thing. I knew that Wilson, I was going to make him beat me. He couldn't beat the Saints. They needed a 6-man front and 2 good linebackers up there to stop the run. Lynch can beat you, but I didn't think Wilson can beat you. Wilson didn't show me a whole lot.
You're right, and he didn't, Brian.
Kenny, you know what this Seattle reminds me, and these guys, looking at these guys reminds me of the early years under Jim Moore when they were, their philosophy defensively was hold the other team to 17 points and we'll get 18, 19, 20 points. Seattle didn't have to have Russell Wilson play at his best like he did in Week 13. They hold the Saints down, they're going to win a game 2017 or 2016.
But that's where the turnovers come in at. And when you're playing good teams in the playoff, you cannot afford to turn the ball over, and that's what happened to us, and that really what put us in the hole.
And just like you said about Mark Ingram missing the screenplay, Cadet and the rest of them missed screenplays too.
Yes.
He wasn't the only one. Everyone.
No, they had opportunities.
All of them.
But some of those balls weren't placed right.
But that's another subject. Why is Cadet in the game? The guy hasn't been on the field on offense in like 2 months.
Yeah.
We'll take a timeout here when we return on our hot seat segment, the Saints' biggest need. What is it? Stay tuned on sportsNOLAtv. Don Seafood, where you want to be. Our sportsNOLA.com trivia question of the evening before Saturday. Who was the last team to win despite being outgained by at least 130 yards in a playoff game? Should be familiar to you, the New Orleans Saints in the NFC Championship game against Minnesota. The Vikings dominated from scrimmage with 475 yards to just 257 for the Saints, but the Saints built the lead. Minnesota caught them. They got the one drive in overtime, barely converted with Pierre Thomas on a conversion down and kicked the winning field goal with Garrett Hartley, who's not here anymore, but you knew that already. Sports NOLA TV, Don Seafood continues. Ken Trahan with you, and it's time now for our hot seat segment, where we put Brian Alley Walsh on the hot seat with a topic of interest and for hot debate, and we tell him why he's wrong. And our question today, or our topic today, which is a question, which is the Saints' biggest need heading into the offseason? Simple question, maybe not a simple answer, or maybe it is. Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Trahan. Before we go any further, doesn't he look like the Dos Equis spokesman? Stay thirsty, my friends. Doesn't he look like, all right, enough of that. I'm sorry, I just had to say that.
TDJs.
The one, Kenny, I read your post on sportsNOLA.com earlier today, and I couldn't agree with you more, so I'm going to give you props here. They need another cornerback to go along with Keenan Lewis. This in mind, they need a veteran cornerback to step in and become a ball hawk. Somebody that can pick interceptions off and make yardage, return balls. I think they're getting real close on defense, but I think the fact that they haven't had enough turnovers, particularly through the second half of the season, speaks to my point, speaks to Ken Trahan's point. They need people that can make plays in the back end. And I think because of Jabari Greer is a fine player, don't get me wrong, and a wonderful human being and a great addition to the roster. They need somebody who's younger, faster, and can make plays out of the secondary.
I agree with that. But I'm going to go special teams. We need a kicker. We need a kicker. We need a kicker bad. As we see, we had opportunity to see in the playoffs, missed 2 kicks. During the season, we missed a couple kicks. We got rid of our kicker mid-season. I think it's very important that they get a kicker in. As we all know, the kickers always lead the team in points. And so we definitely need somebody to come in, somebody that's pretty good. I don't know who's out there right now, but we need a good kicker to come in, a good young kicker, somebody we can keep in for a while. We talked about our great friend that's going to be inducted, has the opportunity to be inducted to the Hall of Fame, and Morton Anderson. We need a Morton Anderson. That's what we need.
We need a Morton Anderson.
I mean, my thing, I'm an offensive line guy. I always want the quarterback to be protected. So I would make sure that I get the offensive line secured, that Drew Brees will be able to have more time where he can find a receiver. You got one of the best quarterbacks, and if you give him time, he can make plays. And I think that you got to make sure that the guys up front can be like the young tackle at Dallas. I mean, somebody who you ain't got to worry about no help, can block his man, and that's what we need. We need a couple guys up front who can give Drew Brees more time.
All right, my second wish list, and I've been this way for a long, long time. Second wish.
You just said one.
I know, but I've already spoken one. My second, and it's going to speak to, really, there's 2 more. But the next one is, no, I've already got I told you the CB. But this team needs additional people. They need an outside linebacker, all right? An outside linebacker.
Can't play no more, Brian.
I know. I'll tell you what. But I'll sign him up in a heartbeat. But they need somebody like, you want Morgan? I want Ricky. I want Ricky.
Look, exactly. If we're going to go on to the second.
Go ahead.
We need a speed receiver. We need somebody with speed. We need somebody that can stretch the field, that can help Jimmy Graham out so those safeties can back off him and they don't have to double team him as much. Him and Colston, I think they're pretty much the same guy. They work the middle. They're big guys. They're not real fast guys. They're not elusive guys. But we need somebody with speed. I think Kenny Stills is great for us, but we still need a speed guy that can get up that field.
Yeah, I tell you what, I mean, even with the safeties, I mean, you know, I like our safety position, but, you know, you might can get a couple more safeties to come in. You need some playmakers back there. Just like Sharper when he was here, you can see the difference. You need a quarterback back there who can call plays and make sure that everybody where they're supposed to be.
All right, one more. And I thought instead of a kicker, T, I thought you were going to say they need somebody that can change field position. Darren Sproles is nice, but obviously he's more fragile than we understand. They need somebody that can return kicks and punts and give offense shorter distances to move.
And be a deep threat as
Absolutely.
a receiver. I think
okay.
a Ted Ginn-like player. I think that's something that we need.
And I'm not saying again, I'm not saying that it could be Joe Morgan, all right? It could be Sproles again if he gets healthy. I think they got to be careful about giving him too many touches and putting him in a position where he gets his bell rung. But they need that guy that can change field position.
And I think that's big.
What he want to do is go back to the Super Bowl.
That's the whole purpose. That is the purpose of the game is to try to get to the Super Bowl. How can we better this team? I think we nailed it, kid.
We did.
You tell us. You hit the hammer now. Hit it now.
Hit it now.
Hit the gavel. Damn it. Agree.
I think you guys are great. A, B, C, D, and E. As was mentioned, what's their biggest need? That means one. Listen, we could sit here and Christmas shop all day. Could they use a better running back? Yes. Could they use another receiver that can get down the field and make plays? Absolutely. Could they use an outside linebacker as was suggested? Certainly. Could they use another safety? Perhaps. Could they use a cornerback? Absolutely. But to me, their biggest need is offensive line. When you look at Drew Brees getting sacked 40 times, when you're looking at being knocked down and hit countless other times, when you look at a running game that was non-existent for half a season, that points to the offensive line. You can talk about Sean Payton not calling running plays a whole lot. Do you honestly think he was comfortable doing so and feeling like they could execute? It's amazing that the Saints got 2 offensive linemen into the Pro Bowl. Jari Evans was hurt much of the first half of the season, didn't play to his level at all. He came on and played much better later in the season, and he's an elite player. Ben Grubbs, with all due respect, he didn't have that good of a year, and he's in the Pro Bowl. Maybe their most consistent lineman was Zach Strief, and he's a free agent. And then there's Terron Armstead, who played well when given the chance in the last couple of games and has a promising future, but you don't know about that yet. And then there's Brian De La Puente, who got overwhelmed at times physically inside. Clearly they need help on their offensive front more than any other spot, understanding that cornerback is a big need, understanding that they can use another playmaker. And oh, by the way, Brian's point about Joseph Morgan, he could be that guy on special teams as well as that guy to be that deep threat to open up things and give Jimmy Graham and Marcus Colston a chance to operate in better fashion. When we return in just a moment, we'll talk about the Pelicans and LSU. As sportsNOLAtv continues from Don's Seafood, use the hot sauce like I did, and that's going to taste even better. Want to read Brian Alley Walsh? You got to go to sportsNOLA.com. You'll find good stuff from Brian and from our entire team of contributors who do an outstanding job at sportsNOLA.com across the board, from pro to college to prep. In all sports, it's sportsNOLA.com. And it's Ken Trahan from Don's Seafood on Veterans between Transcontinental and Clearview. Come out to Don's and enjoy a great meal. And go out to a Pelicans game and hopefully enjoy a good game. Haven't been so good of late. Injuries have certainly contributed, and losing has been prevalent. Currently, 6 games under 500, 5-game losing streak. Without Drew Holiday, he's out indefinitely. Stress fracture of tibia. And, of course, Ryan Anderson is out. Tyreek Evans has been banged up. And, oh, by the way, the league says that officials missed a shooting foul at the end of Saturday's game against Dallas, a 3-point loss. The foul would have resulted in 3 free throws. 3 home games this week. The Spurs in town tonight. And here's the call in Dallas. Austin Rivers off the dribble. He gets absolutely hogtied, and no foul is called. Now, again, it's a 3-point difference on the close-up. It's so obvious. The official's right there. What is he looking at? How can you not make a call? This is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, that's one of the most obvious foul calls you will ever see. And the official is right on the spot, and he doesn't make the call. Was Mark Cuban sitting 5 feet away? I don't know, but that's just blatant, Brian, when you look at that.
Dirk Nowitzki gets the call. You know what I'm saying? I mean, is this because no one knows of Austin Rivers? He doesn't have the name recognition? Dirk Nowitzki gets that call.
Yeah, he easily gets that call. Superstars gets the call, but that was just blatant. That was point blank blatant. They should have called that.
And Ricky, injuries have contributed, but this has been a disappointing team. They don't defend. I know you go to a lot of their games. They give up 100 points almost every game, and if you can't defend, you can't win, and they just haven't improved in that area from last year.
Well, I mean, they don't play defense real well, and the offense, I mean, they have to run plays every trip. You know, I mean, I look at the Heats a lot of times. They get the ball, and they go down and just score, and that's what the NBA all about now. It ain't about the coaches. The coaches want to set up every play. The guys can't play ball, and they kind of like, you know, under control. So they really can't play basketball. What they playing, I don't understand what they playing, because basketball, you can look at the Heats and different teams. They're not playing that kind of style
Brian,
of basketball.
this is their window to shine, because the Saints season's over, but there they are with 5 straight losses, and we're almost looking ahead to next year already.
Yeah, you know, we talked about this earlier, early on the show in December. They have a window here where they need to be competitive, stay around the 500 mark. And now you lose 2 of your players in Holiday and in Anderson. You can't afford to do that. And this club, obviously, is not that deep. So they're already 6 under 500. Who knows what they're going to be like when those guys come back?
I think they need to call up Pierre Jackson, their second-round pick, who's just tearing it up in the D-League right now, and give him a chance to play. I mean, the guy's averaging over 30 a game at point guard, and right now they need a point guard, so why not?
On the roster, this guy won out. This guy already actually got out. Anytime somebody asks you to get traded and they want to play for another team, that's a bad sign right there.
And the NBA's in a bit of trouble. Right now, the NHL has sold out more games than the NBA has this year. That's not a good sign.
No, the NBA has been going down. The games are not as exciting as they used to be. The players are not as excited as
There's too many bad teams.
Too many bad teams.
There's imbalance everywhere, yes.
No balance. They need to take a page from the NFL and bouncing off teams and all. They need to do something about their draft. They need to do something about the coaching as well. But they definitely need to do something to bring a change.
But the players make a lot of money and the contract guarantee. So
Bring some changes.
The LSU Tigers, of course, are looking forward to National Recruiting Signing Day in a big haul, but the Tigers are losing some key players to the NFL draft. And most notably today, Jeremy Hill changing directions and deciding that he's going to go into the NFL draft. Now, this is tempered by the fact that you got Leonard Fournette coming in, so I think this is fine and it's the right decision for Hill, Brian.
I agree totally. In fact, it surprised me that Jeremy Hill was even considering staying. I don't think he's... Can he do more at the college level? Yeah, perhaps so, but I think he's worn out at LSU. I think it's time for him to move on. And I'll tell you what, I'm excited as like everybody else. I want to see Fournette get the ball early.
And he will now, that's guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Trey Turner of St. Aug's going to declare it too, but that's a gray area because he doesn't project very high. And I don't know. I don't really understand some of these moves.
Yeah, but Jeremy Hill, it's just hard for running backs. It's hard for running backs in the NFL. You can find a running back just about anywhere in the NFL, and you have a lot of them coming out early. It's going to be tough. It's going to be pretty interesting to see where he gets drafted.
Well, I think he's in the top 5 running backs. I mean, I just look at him. He got the speed, he got the size, he got the quickness, and he can catch the ball. So I really like him. I think that he'd be one of the top running backs in the NFL next year.
Back to take a look at the Saints' future and more from Don's Seafood when sportsNOLAtv continues. Good. It's seafood the old-fashioned way in the newly renovated Don's Seafood Restaurant, 4801 Veterans Boulevard in Metairie between Clearview and Transcontinental. Call 889-1550. The same Landry family that served your great-grandfather is still here doing it 80 years later, keeping the tradition and the taste alive. Mama's Gumbo, baked seafood, fried seafood, and frying and baking the entire recruiting scene. PRI, Prep Recruiting Insider with Renee Nato and Ro Brown, Wednesday night back at the normal time at 6 p.m. Leonard Fournette, want to see him, want to hear him? You can do so on PRI, and I guarantee you, you will enjoy it. And of course, the John Forcade Show, presented by Ray Brandt, Thursdays at 6 p.m. with analyst Mike Detillier, and they'll break down the Saints season from their own perspective, and you won't want to miss it. John Forcade with Mike Detillier coming up Thursday night. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv from Don's Seafood in Metairie. Speaking of Don's Seafood, you want some good seafood? You want some good steak? How about a combination of the two? Surf and turf and the baked potato, that's your special, $15.99 tonight. That's right, $15.99. I said it right, $15.99. Awesome. You guys are salivating over this, and you can get it, the Monday night special at Don's Seafood at $15.99. What a deal, what a meal. That rhymes, it's beautiful. All right, it's time now to make some picks. So let's start with Brian. AFC Championship, who do you have?
I like Denver at home.
Okay. NFC Championship, who do you have?
I like San Francisco on the road.
Thank you, sir. Torrance?
I would double that down. Same picks.
Ricky?
I like New England, and I like San Francisco.
Okay, I'm going to go with the first two guys. I like Denver to finally get it done at home, and I'll say that again, at home. And I like San Francisco to win on the road, and I'll say that again, on the road. I just think the 49ers are playing the best right now of anybody. I think they're playing the best at the right time, and I think they've got an attitude adjustment coming for Seattle, who's really manhandled them at home in recent times. And I think Peyton Manning's tired of hearing this stuff, and I think he's ready to step forward and make the plays and win at home against Tom Brady in New England and cement his stature in folklore as one of the greatest ever, Brian.
I agree, and you know, it's going to be interesting. Hopefully Peyton will do it. I'd like to see him perhaps, and there's discussion right now, speculation that in March they're going to find out if he can continue his fine career. So let's hope he stays healthy and can do it.
All right, who wins the Super Bowl, Torrance?
I'm going with 49ers.
Okay.
The defense and offense have been clicking. I think they have a tremendous team, great team.
Ricky, who wins the Super Bowl?
Oh, I like the 49ers too. I mean, you know, they be their sixth time. You know, they done 1 and 5, and they're trying to make that 6 just like Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think those guys are pretty hungry over there.
Brian?
Well, my heart here, I want Peyton Manning. They will get there. They'll get to New York, and I want Denver to win it all.
But you didn't tell me who's going to win it all.
Denver, I'm sorry.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go with San Francisco to beat Denver in the Super Bowl. And, of course, we'll see who gets there first before we really make our final picks. Gentlemen, it's always a pleasure. Thank you. Take it easy on that surf and turf, but it's all good. You hear? Ricky, Brian, Torrance, for all three of these fine gentlemen and for our outstanding crew. Now, this is Ken Trahan from Don's Seafood saying thanks for joining us. Be a good sport. God bless you one and all. Rounding third and heading home. So long.